Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Mudroom, which happens to be my very favorite thing that we do. And I'd also like to, I'm Sally Bacon, and I'm on the Mudroom team, and I'm also one of the board of directors here at AVA. I would like to invite all of you. I know I see a lot of the same faces for the Mudroom, and I don't know if you all come to our wonderful openings. And just in case you don't, I'd like to remind you that coming June 12th is our juried show, which is always a really fun, fabulous show. July? July 12th. Huh. Show up, yeah, it's already June 13th. All right, listen, let's start over. Also, we have our new summer classes on our website, so please go there, and there's some great classes for everyone to take. And I'd also like to introduce, well, at least let you know who's on the team. I'm on the Mudroom team, Judith Hertog, Leanne Moshe. See, I swear to God, it's not my night. And we have Mike Lovell, who couldn't attend tonight. And we have two new members. Casey Carpenter's here tonight, and Gavin Wincoop Fisher. And they are great additions. Younger guys, a little different energy. I'm very, very excited. And next month's Mudroom theme is... Oh, I give up. Listen, I think I should tell a story. I'm going to tell a story instead. How about that? Anyway, Cheryl. Oh, we couldn't do this without Cheryl. Come over here. I know. Honest to God, I give up. I'm not prepared tonight. I wasn't prepared to do this. So anyway, enjoy the evening. I'm going to turn it over. What? What did I miss? What? No. I had some wine before. That's all. I don't usually drink, okay? What? What did I do?
No. Did you say what the theme was the next time?
The theme for the next time is breaking the rules.
Breaking the rules.
Yes.
So if you haven't broken the rules yet with a good story, think about breaking the rules between now and then and coming up with a good story.
Anyway, have fun.
Thank you again for coming, everybody. We also want to thank our musicians tonight, Concrete Garden, and I'm sure they'd appreciate something in the tip jar, so if you enjoyed their music, please visit the back of the hall. They'll be playing again during the intermission. And again, we had really delicious food tonight by Pawn. And if you haven't taken advantage of this $10 multi-course meal, think about it for next time. Really delicious. I think they're here about 6:30, so come early enough. And we feel like that's a great addition to the evening, so people can eat and visit and then come in for stories. So again, tonight's theme is what I did for money. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this, we announce the theme, and we are then eagerly awaiting for submissions for people who give us a small story pitch. And we've been playing around with different ways to do that. In the beginning, people would write their whole story. Big mistake, because then somebody would come with a written story and want to read it, which is not what we were looking for. And then we would say, how about just writing a small paragraph for your pitch? And we're doing that. We're thinking a little bit about the possibility of having people call in on a voice recording and say their name, which is what the Moth does. So we're working with this. And I also want to apologize because we found out tonight that an interested storyteller submitted a pitch and we lost it. So I want to... maybe I lost it. So bear with us as we go through this whole process of how to select a story. And then we meet with the storytellers who are selected, and there's a kind of a workshopping small, we tell for each other and ask some questions, and then have the night of the telling. So that's what the situation is like. Now, if you've been here before, you also know that one of the kind of favorite, I think, parts of this evening is that we are asking people in the audience who feel moved as they listen to these stories and think of a little story they have about what they did for money tonight, there's a basket in the other room where you can put your name and just like a little blurb what the story is about. And then during intermission, we will be selecting one name, and that person will come and tell their story, just ad lib after the break. So be brave. These are real stories told by real people without, written form. So I'm sure everyone has many stories. There'll also be, during intermission, there's a raffle with prizes. Usually they're Mudroom tickets and an AVA and a family membership. So please put your name in the hat for that. So of the storytellers who submitted this time, we're excited that we will begin tonight. Our first storyteller is Joe Frazier. And Joe is going to talk to us about a job that he had that maybe others in the audience have also had. Joe.
Wow, look at all of you. This is my first time. Now, I've got to tell you, I wanted to come to the Mudroom for a long time, but I couldn't get a ticket. So I had to write a story. So here we are. Now, before I tell you the story I'm going to tell you tonight, I want to tell you that my high school class and I were celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. And one of my classmates, who her and I are reconnecting after all this time, she said to me, Joe, what is the most embarrassing thing you've done over all these years? And I was really at a loss, not because I couldn't think of one, but there were so many. How do I pick one? So anyway, the story you're going to hear tonight is going to be one of those. So I want to set the scene a little bit. So it's the early 1970s, Boston area, and I work in a major hospital in the parking lot. I'm a parking lot attendant, okay? And my bank account reflects that. I also have a girlfriend, okay? So there's two problems right there. Now, she does catering. And she's making better money than I am, and I want to fluff up my bank account and impress her a little bit. Oh, by the way, this girlfriend becomes my wife eventually, okay? So, anyway, I decide, well, I don't know, do I really want to cater, you know? And so I am guaranteed that this is a very easy job. Anybody can do it. My daughter would say, Dad, it's easy peasy, right? So anyway, I think about it and I decide, okay, I'm going to try it. So the first thing is to clean up. A retired hippie here, all right? So I go out, buy the ensemble, and prepare for my first evening. Now, it's the 1970s. I want to tell all the younger people here that weddings in the 1970s were a lot different than they are today. No flying to Hawaii and then going on the world cruise. That doesn't happen, all right? We go camping, all right? So they're pretty simple. And so the setting is really kind of a VFW hall, you know, the round tables with the 8 people, right? And I show up, and the first part of my job is to set, walking away from the mic, I've got to set the table. So there's a little white tablecloth that goes on these tables, and then a centerpiece, okay? So the centerpieces were pretty simple. That's all it is, just something like this, a little vase with some flowers in it. Okay, success. Then people begin to arrive, right? Now it's a wedding. So the men are in coat and tie, and the women are in evening wear. And the first job I have now with my actual guests at the table is to put out some beverage, which is going to be coffee. Now why, I don't know, because these people aren't going to drink any coffee. They're all going to start drinking at the bar right away, right? But anyway, so again, it's the 1970s. So the coffee goes on the table. And then the sweetener. Now, none of that yellow and blue stuff back then. It's straight up sugar, okay? Probably one of the reasons why things will get out of control here a little bit. But, and then the cream, all right? So now I am trying to impress people, and I'm trying to be efficient, so I approach my table, and I have a creamer in my left hand and a creamer in my right hand. And there is a woman to my right and a man to my left. And as I lean over to place the first creamer on the table, the first indication I have that something is going wrong is the look on this woman's face of surprise and startle. And she begins to arch her back. She's in a backless dress, okay? And down her back goes the cream right into her dress. Whoops. First mistake. Now, her husband, He's getting a big kick out of this. I'm passing him napkins. He's wiping her down, you know. And then finally she gets up and goes off to the ladies' room to complete the cleanup process. All right, well, everybody makes mistakes. I don't think this is too bad. But anyway, the evening moves on. And people are having fun, and I'm hoping the whole affair is forgotten. And, you know, we're getting to the point where the evening's about to close. Now, something that is not recorded in the annals of American crime or by the FBI is something called wedding theft. And this occurs back in the 1970s. You know those Ziploc bags that people have today? We're all so used to them. Well, those have just been invented. This was brand new, an amazing invention. And with that Ziploc bag, you could put that in your purse, pull it out, throw some roast beef in it, put it back in your purse, and leave. You've got dinner for tomorrow night. Okay? So anyway, these types of things are going on, and now I have to clear the tables. So I'm going around, and I'm, you know, taking off the dirty dishes, and everything's going okay. And the centerpiece is on the table. Now, sometimes you can take a centerpiece home, and other times, you know, it's not allowed. It belongs to the catering company or whatever. And I honestly did not know what the situation was. But this woman turns to me and says, "So what's the situation with the centerpiece? Can we take them home?" And I said, "I don't know. But if I walk away from this table and I come back and that centerpiece is gone, who would know the difference, right?" So I leave, I come back, and the centerpiece is gone. Well, I go about finishing up my job, clear the table, return to the kitchen. Oh, and I'd received my tip, my big take for the night, $2, all right? Oh, and I get no tip from the table with the lady at the cream, right? But anyway, I return to the kitchen, and of course, I'm hoping that all this is forgotten, but it is not. Now, people have dropped plates before. They've dropped entire trays, poured coffee on people, but this is the first time in the annals of Gene Catering that anybody has actually poured a cremant on somebody's dress. So this is big news, and people are talking about it. So I'm a little embarrassed, you know, standing over there in the corner, and the boss is, you know, the cook and all of that stuff, and wondering what's going to happen next. Well, my girlfriend, future wife, had been stationed not too far from me in this whole event. She's keeping an eye on me, right? And suddenly the door bursts open, and there she is, standing there with kind of an angry look on her face. And she has the centerpiece in her hand. And oh no. And then the boss turns and says, "What's wrong?" And she says, "I went up to this table, I saw the centerpiece sitting there, I took it, and the woman said, 'That centerpiece is bought and paid for.'" I just slumped. And the boss turned around and said, "And whose table was it?" And as I raised my hand and she lowered her head, my catering career came to an end. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Our next storyteller is Lisa Satterley. And I'm sorry to say that we misspelled Lisa's name on the program. And Lisa is going to share with us a story about many jobs that she had.
It's true. I've had many jobs. So time and time again, I have found myself in financial dire straits. I've almost always had 2 jobs to keep things running. When I got married at 19, I had no idea that well, of course, that was a brilliant idea, but I had no idea that by 21, I would be divorced, living at home again with my parents, and have a bankruptcy on my credit report. He got the bankruptcy court hearing 3 weeks before the divorce was finalized. So at this point, I needed money. So I started working part-time in a restaurant and managed to get some cash saved up. And everything else is hard when you have a bankruptcy on your credit report. So making cash money at a restaurant, and managed to save up enough to move the hell away from the Upper Valley, because that's what I wanted to do. So when I moved to Minnesota, I continued moonlighting in restaurants, And Barb's Place was a place that took me in as a server. Barb's Place was in Rice, Minnesota, which is a very small town. It's kind of like Orange or Grafton around here. I was quite the attraction at Barb's Place. That was actually the name of the diner, Barb's Place, because a lot of folks that came in there regularly had never met anybody from the East Coast or had a funny accent like mine. So the next time that restaurant service saved my bacon, BLT, do you want it on rye, sourdough, multigrain? Oh, next table. Definitely love bacon. It's a good thing in a restaurant. A few years later, I found myself back in Lebanon, hat in hand, standing on my parents' doorstep, $30,000 in credit card debt from the last failed relationship. So, no plan, no job. Needed to find a job. Needed to go to the Walmart to pick up a few things. So, of course, I run into somebody I know because I'm from here. Judy says to me, what's up? And I said, well, I came back and looking for a job. She says, go over to Friendly's, talk to John. He's the manager. I'll put in a word for you. I said, okay. I did. He hired me right away on the spot. I started at Friendly's, West Lebanon. So, got a full-time admin job, worked about 30 hours in various restaurants. If you see a lot of servers around town, if you dine out regularly, you know that you see servers in one place and then you may go to another restaurant and see them somewhere else. It's because we're always looking for the next higher check average and better tips, better working conditions. So from Friendly's, I went to the beautiful shores of Lake Maury and spent some time helping the golfers at Lake Maury Resort. It's great tips until about January or February. Driving there for a breakfast shift at 5 in the morning is not very lucrative in January, February. So I thought I wanted something more steady. I went to corporate. I knew some people working at 99. You make a lot of connections. You make a lot of friends in the restaurant industry. You know all of the players around town. So some people I knew were at 99. I thought that would be a good fit. So I made friends with a young man at 99, and speaking of breaking the rules as the next theme, he was one that wanted to, I think his goal was to break all the rules. So we're working corporate restaurant 99, and you know, they have like these fancy specials, and you have to approach the table, and you have to like feature your specials and your drinks and push everything. So my friend Chris, he's since passed, so he would love me telling this. Chris goes to the table, he's got these guests, and he says, you have to try a Raging Cajun combo. I know it sounds like bad porn, but it's good eating. I miss him so much. So away from the corporate, I did end up doing some stints at Salt Hill Pub. Salt Hill Pub is a place where it's kind of like a Cheers. Everybody knows your name. They name the food after the customers that order it the most. So I've waitressed, bartended, managed at Lebanon and Hanover. I'm currently in West Leb a couple nights a week. All of these restaurant jobs, I worked about 30 hours a week, again, while I was working admin. I've had a chance to meet a lot of interesting people in these jobs. I've worked with 2 Olympians. Andy Wheating, the runner, he was a busboy with me. Nick Alexander, the skier, he was a dishwasher. I've also met a lot of interesting customers and guests. I was waiting on a church group one afternoon, and a woman approached me and she said, excuse me, can I give you a hug? And I said, well, that's kind of a strange request, but you're the customer. Okay. So this woman is in the hallway, and she hugs me, and she kind of holds me by the shoulders, and she says, I can tell that you have a heart for service. She's right. My current job is in a nonprofit. I do enjoy service, but I also have the feet and the back and the attitude for it. To last long term in any kind of restaurant, you have to have a really good sense of humor and thick skin. You're working hard and being ordered around by customers and other employees and cooks. So I did that for about 30 hours a week. for about 7 years. And eventually it paid off that $30,000. So it was awesome. So I remarried. I settled down, stayed in the Upper Valley, remarried, and I got just one job. It's like the first time ever I only had one job. But the universe is apparently against me, so I've recently divorced. Although this divorce did not come with a bankruptcy or a mountain of debt, living in the Upper Valley, living in the Upper Valley is expensive on your own. So I decided that for my social life and to make a little extra cash to kind of pay for some of those craft beers that I like to enjoy after work, I should get a little part-time job. It's maintaining my middle-class lifestyle and my Upper Valley status symbol car, which is a 2007 Subaru Outback. So we were reminded to please leave a little in the tip jar for the musicians tonight. I definitely second that and appreciate it. A lot of the musicians, when they come in to play in the bar, they remind our patrons to please don't forget to tip your servers and your bartenders. So I'd like to put that out to everybody here because it's what we do for the money.
Thanks, Lisa. Both Joe and Lisa were first-time storytellers here at the Moth. Our next two storytellers, actually, before the break, are people who have told before. And our next storyteller is Aaron Osofsky, and he is not going to tell a story about serving food. Aaron.
So I'm going to see if I can get the mic correct tonight. Can everyone hear me? Yes, good. So, yes, I am Aaron Osofsky, and I grew up in Queens, New York with my father and my mother and my twin sister, Deborah, and my brother, David. Now, my mother, she was an outspoken woman, so she would let you know what she was really thinking. And when all us kids were really young, maybe in second grade, she would say about us, Deborah, she's so mouthy, she's going to be a lawyer. And David, he's so smart, he's going to be a mathematician. And you, my little bubbler, you will be an artist. To her credit, she was essentially right on all three accounts. My sister became an attorney and a mediator, and my brother became a computer scientist, which is, I guess, like math, but in a profession which didn't exist yet. And I do art, well, sort of. You see, when I was a kid, I loved all things art, drawing and painting and building all the time, whenever I could. And I also loved science. And that made sense to me since my father was a veterinarian and my mother was trained as a biology teacher. But she didn't teach biology. She stayed home and raised us kids, and we were close in age, and parenting wasn't her strong suit. So by the time Sunday rolled around, she would say to my dad, Norman, get the kids out of my hair. And he would take all three of us kids to the Museum of Natural History in New York City with sketch pads and pencils so that we could sketch science exhibits. He had some kind of a family membership that made it free, so we went all the time. Anyway, this married science and art together for me, and it became my personal blueprint for life. So much so that when I went to high school, I found a special school where I could take 7 years of art and 5 years of science in the 4 years I was there. It's true. And I found, when I graduated from high school, I applied to both art schools and university science programs. And I ended up at Cornell University in the School of Agriculture, where I studied plant science research, and I graduated with my Bachelor of Science in 1985. However, in 1984, in the middle of my junior year, it all felt very wrong. I didn't want to be a researcher. I didn't want to work for Monsanto, and a career in plant science research is leading right in that direction. And I was terrified, and I was confused, and I didn't know what to do. I knew I needed a new plan. So I applied to the illustration program at the Rhode Island School of Design, and I got in. And My new plan was I was going to get this Bachelor of Fine Arts, become an illustrator, and support myself as an artist. Well, all done. No, it really wasn't like that. What actually happened was I was leaving from Cornell with my Bachelor of Sciences, and I packed up all my stuff in the back of the red VW Beetle, and I drove down to Providence, Rhode Island. And by the time I got there, it seems that because of my credits at Cornell, I was already considered to be of junior status, which gave me 2 years to get all the training I needed to be an artist and an illustrator. And 2 years was probably okay, but after only 1 year, I get this letter from the administration. And it tells me that I can no longer take any more of those academic courses I'm taking. Instead, I'm supposed to find an advisor, locate studio space, and go off and do my own thing. Now, after 1 year, I didn't have enough training to go off and do my own thing. And so I ended up dropping out of RISD without my senior year, without my Bachelor of Fine Arts. So all I can say is, wow, 5 years of college, and I still didn't have the skills I needed to be able to do the thing I wanted to do. So I needed to make a new plan. And my new plan was I'm going to go to New York City to the Art Students League where they have some quality training. And I will go ahead and work part-time in Manhattan, and I will take the courses at the Art Students League. But this was way, way before the internet and Craigslist, and this was much harder to organize back then. So I didn't achieve that. So I reluctantly asked my father if I could move back into my childhood home in Queens, New York, near Manhattan, so that I could work part-time and take these courses. And he reluctantly said yes, with some provisions. I had to pay some nominal rent, and I had to have chores in the house, and I had to be working to stay in the house, or at least looking for a job. So I moved back to Queens, and I looked and I looked and I looked. Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, couldn't find it. A job opens up in Hempstead, Long Island, over here. And the Art Students League is here in Manhattan, and there was no way I could actually do my work here and take the coursework I wanted here, but I promised I would work, and I took the job so that I could stay at home. So I had to make a new plan. And my new plan was I would have to self-educate in art at home. So I would go to my glorified stockboy job over in Hempstead, Long Island. I would race home and have dinner. And then I would go up to my bedroom, and I would do art, copying mostly anatomical figure drawings late into the night after night after night, for the better part of a year, because I was determined to be an artist. Well, my father had a bedroom in the attic, and I imagined he was looking down at me with the hairy eyeball and wondering when I might get done. And I also imagined that he was thinking, fly away, little bird. For God's sakes, fly away. And he must have discussed this with my sister's orthodontist, his tennis partner, that his runt chick, me, hadn't flown the nest. Because even though I'd never met her before, and she'd never been to the home before, she decided to come over one day and meet me. She sat me down in my own living room, and she told me in a tempo much faster than I can even talk. She said, "You have all the requirements to go to dental school: biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, physics. All dentists are artists. They do drawing and painting and casting, and the worst part of becoming a dentist is going to dental school. The professors are arbitrary. The hours are terrible." Years later, I understood this conversation to be in the format of an informed consent. She was letting me know about the 4 shitty years I'd have to endure in dental school to have the marvelous life she imagined I could have if only I would abandon art, become a dentist, and let my father retire and leave the home and sell it or whatever he wanted to do. But what I got from this conversation is that dentists did well financially, and maybe I could work 2 days a week as a dentist and maybe 5 days a week as an artist. As long as I had very, very low expenses, I was very modest in my lifestyle and had no responsibilities, no family, no children, no insurance, no car, no mortgage payment, et cetera, et cetera. And then, if I ate soup from a can and day-old bread, I could be a real artist. And that's how I figured it. So I looked for dental schools, and I found the University of Buffalo School of Dental Medicine, right there in beautiful Buffalo, New York. It was cheap, because now I was a New York State resident, and no one wanted to live in Buffalo at that time. So the living expenses were cheap also. And so I went, and what I discovered was that all those academic things they teach you in dental school, I loved them because they were a lot like science, but without the research. And there was this creative part too, where you would sculpt teeth out of wax and carve them and cast them in gold, and that was a lot like art. Science, art, my personal blueprint. I considered myself lucky, and I was lucky because I met my wife in my senior year, and we were married by the end of the year. So she and I headed off to New Haven, Connecticut, to the Yale New Haven Hospital, where I was going to take this one-year residency. Now, there were some negatives about doing it. First of all, I worked day and night, and I never saw my wife, and they paid me so little that I could barely live at the edge of the drive-by shooting zone around the hospital. But the positive part is that they taught me all sorts of things they never teach you in dental school, like how to remove a tooth from a hemophiliac without having them bleed to death, or maybe how to manage someone who has a bad gum infection, who also has leukemia or diabetes, and is on chemotherapy. These are the tough ones. And I learned all sorts of special things, like how do I manage people who need special assistance or care because they have maybe HIV, or they're drug dependent, or they have alcoholism, or they have special needs, or they have serious mental illness. I learned all these things. But what I did most of the time was fix people's teeth and maybe make them dentures so they could smile and not be ashamed sometimes, or not be in pain, or so they could chew better. But most of the time I sort of took people out of pain. I learned a lot in residency, and it kind of changed me as a person because I discovered this piece of me I didn't know existed that really enjoyed taking these new skills that I had and helping people fix some part of their life. And it gave me a lot of confidence. And so by the time I finished my residency, my wife and I, we headed up to the Upper Valley, and we had 2 boys, one with severe special needs and one with exceptional talents. And raising those 2 boys took all of my time. And I had no time for art, and that went right here on the back burner, where it sat for 20-something years, and it's still there. But I tell you the story because fine arts is my first love, and I will always love it. And I plan to return to it someday. Maybe on the weekends, maybe after hours, maybe part-time, and maybe that will be enough. But the job that I chose in order to be able to support myself as an artist turned out to be a perfect match for me, and allowed me the opportunity to discover the piece of myself that loved to serve others, actually. And it also gave me the opportunity to be part of this community for the last 25 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron. Our last story, I was just told by Sally, it's catching, that I called this the moth. It's the mudroom, but our last storyteller before the break is Margot O'Day. And Margot has been a storyteller here before, and we are really pleased to have her back.
So, I come from a huge family, and one of the things about my family is you need a job. I was 12, my mother says, you want money? You need a job. So we picked berries, did this and that. When I hit high school, I started working at Camp Magpies in beautiful downtown Orange, New Hampshire, where I basically babysat rich little kids. Told them, baby skunks are not kittens. And you do not row boats backwards. And the fun thing was when they were in their little tents, they'd say, oh, tell us a story. At this time, it'd be a little windy and the branches are scratching. I'd tell them that's the bears. What are they doing? Trying to get in to get you. Nobody slept. So my senior year, my father had just passed away. And this was 1969, and it was the hippie era. Woodstock had just happened. I missed it because I was working. So school was starting up. I didn't have to go to school. I'd graduated. I had not discussed with my mother anything about what I was going to do because, well, it's my mother. I didn't want to talk to her. So we're at home, and She's watching Dark Shadows, smoking a cigarette, drinking a coffee. She says, "What are you doing, little Miss Muffet?" That was her name for me when she was getting serious. I said, "Why? What do you mean?" She goes, "What are you doing for work?" And I'm sitting there, and I'm wearing tie-dyes and bell bottoms and buffalo sandals, and I said, "Well, I thought I'd take some time off." It's been a rough year. I just graduated high school. And my mother puts her cigarette out and looks at me. She goes, "I don't think so." She said, "You're going to work for me." Now, my father died, so my mother had to get employment. And she had 6 kids running around. So, she was like, I'm going to clean house. This is something very unexpected because our house looked like somebody was holding a garage sale inside and nobody bought anything. But because my mother was German, she had a little accent and she presented well. She'd have the little kerchief on, she had her apron, bucket of Lysol and bleach, scrub brushes, and she cleaned like a crazy person. I said, "Ma, I don't have to do this." My mother said, "Yes, you are. I didn't carry my infant brother halfway across Germany eating potatoes, being chased by Russians for you to say no." Okay. That argument puts you in, that's like, okay, I guess. She goes, so she had a lot of clients because they hear German cleaning woman, and a lot of flatlanders had started to move up here, and they're well off. "Oh yeah, let's hire this woman." And my mother would exaggerate her accent a little bit. She'd run in, she'd scrub, she'd get the Lysol, bleach, everything. So she says, "I have a woman I want you to work for." This woman named Sunshine had moved into the area. She bought a farm like 3 miles from our house. She was from New York City. She was 40-ish, little short, chubby woman, wearing the tie-dye and she was my people. It wasn't my mother's person. My mother says, I went to her house, and I had all my stuff, and she said, "Oh, you're not using that. You're not using that in my house. Here." And she handed my mother a bottle of patchouli oil. So my mother knew this was not going to be a good match. But the thing was, Sunshine paid double because it was hard to get people to go, 3 miles up on some back road. She had a beautiful farmhouse that was different. She said, "You're going to clean for her." Now, I'd met this woman once. It's okay. She's my people. I'll go. So I went there, and I'd only met her out front of her house. Her house looked like Mother Nature threw up because she just put stuff in the ground. It was just there. I went in her house, and, the woman had a loom in the living room. She had a potter's wheel in the washroom with a washer and dryer. She had stuff everywhere. It's like she was like a squirrel with nuts in the paw. She bing, 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 bing. Different crafts all over the place. Beads, bead curtains. The whole place smelled like patchouli oil and pot. And I'd go in and I'd say, "What would you like me to do?" "I don't care, just clean." I'm like, "Where? What do I?" She had stuff everywhere, paint. So I just walk around with a cloth and wipe stuff off. Do a few dishes. So this went on for a month and a half, and it was getting fall. And she was busy, I don't know, tie-dyeing was her new thing. So she was tie-dyeing stuff, sheets, everything she owned. She says, "Margot, I got to go to New York City for a week. I'd like you to stay and watch my dog." Now, I've had dogs. We always had dogs. In Enfield, you open the door, you say, "Get out," the dog leaves, does its business, you say, "Come back," and they come in. That's what dogs do. This dog, first time I tried that, I opened the door, dog ran out, ran off the porch, boom, and left. And didn't come, I had to go find it. So Sunshine goes, "I don't think he's used to that. He used to having a, you walk him in New York City, I guess." Well, it was a Bichon. It was a white dog, too, which is very unfortunate for me. So she leaves, And I spend a week and I had fun. The woman had a huge library. I was reading, I was listening to music, I was smoking some of her pot. I was having a great time. So my mother calls. She goes, Sunshine just called me. I said, yeah. She goes, she's coming back tomorrow. Okay. And at this point, I hadn't even cleaned anything. I hadn't wiped anything. So she goes, clean everything and then, make sure the dog's okay, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm looking at the dog, and since I've been taking the dog out in the rain, I've been walking it, but I didn't avoid any puddles with it. This is a white dog, but now this dog is white on top and brown on the bottom. So I said, oh, this means I gotta wash the dog. I've never washed a dog in my life. Our dogs are smart. They go out, they get in the lake, they swim around, get out, and you're clean. This dog wasn't that smart. This dog was stupid. So I do my little cleaning thing, blah, 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 and I said, time to wash the dog. So she's got this huge mudroom. She's got her potter's wheel. It's got a big, huge sink. I said, I'll wash the dog in the sink. Not a problem. So I leave. The dog keeps following me. I put it in the mudroom, close the door. And I'm looking for soap to wash a dog. I have no clue what you use to wash a dog. So I finally settled on dish soap. I figured this will work. And I go in the mudroom, and it's all blue. I'm saying, uh-oh. And the dog's in there, and the dog's all blue. Apparently, Sunshine had left her dye underneath the sink. And the dog had punctured it. And I'm looking at this dog, and I was amazed because this is going to be difficult. So I said, maybe it'll wash out. Maybe it's like that kind. So I get the dog in the sink, and I'm soaping it up. And the dog's like one big fluffy thing, but it's still blue. And I rinse it. I did that 2 or 3 times. And then the dog sticks his tongue out, and his tongue and his teeth are blue, too. So I said, okay. I knew I couldn't ask my mother what to do, because she'd kill me. So it's okay. So I washed the dog as good as possible. It's still blue, but not quite as bright, except for the teeth. I said, okay, this is good. So I leave. I walk the 3 miles home, trying to think of what excuse I'm going to give. And I get home, and there's, my mom's, everything okay? Blah, blah, blah. How much she paid? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, and we're sitting there, and then the phone call comes. And in my house, when there's a phone call, you know something's not right. So anyways, my mother's on the phone. My mother gets off the phone. She goes, little Miss Muppet, I need to talk to you. I don't know how you got a dog blue, but you are never, ever working for me again.
Thank you, Margot. So we're going to take a brief intermission. Again, put your name in for the raffle. If you've been thinking about a little story that you might have and you want to put your pitch in the basket, when we come back after intermission, we will be picking raffle winners and choosing somebody from the audience to tell a story and have the second half of our program. Thanks.
Is everybody ready for more stories? Okay. Okay, after this wonderful first half, we're moving to the second half. But before we go on, I would like to thank the band again, Concrete Garden. Don't forget to tip the band. And we're going to start with a story from the audience. We have several submissions here. And I want to urge you, if you put your story in here and it doesn't get picked to tell it right now, 5-minute story, make sure to submit your story or another story for the next Mudroom. And remember, that's going to be September 13th. And the theme next time is breaking the rules and I'm sure everybody here has at least broken one rule. So we're looking forward to many good stories. And we're going to first draw one story, and then we'll do the raffle so the person who gets picked has at least a few minutes to compose themselves. Here we go. And who is it?
Well, it's Peter Lee Hatch, who has been this chosen storyteller from the audience once before.
Oh, really? Whoa. And is he here? Okay, so you're going to come up soon, but we're going to go on with the raffle first. Sally, would you want to? Yes, please. Well, can we? Is that wine?
It is.
So that's going to be. Wait. What is this going to be?
Oh, what is this?
What is the prize?
Did you just bring me up here to embarrass me? All right, how about 2 tickets to the next Mudroom?
Okay, 2 tickets
All right,
to the
now
mud.
let's just, now I gotta switch glasses, Judith, I wasn't prepared again. All right, here we go. Carol Clark. Yay! So what's
2
the next,
tickets.
what's the next round?
How many 2 tickets do we have?
Oh.
Or you can.
Are you,
Can you save them for the next time? I think.
yes, you can save them for the next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for December.
All right,
And is this going to be the family membership?
this will be the family membership. If you say so. All right, Ginger Wallace. Yay! All right. Oh, we gotta hold on to it, that's it.
Okay, that's it for prizes.
Excuse me.
Peter, would you be so kind to come up to tell a story here, a 5-minute story? And I'll hold on to the other names, and we may just contact you if you don't submit for the next Mudroom. We'll find you.
This is really weird. This has happened to me before. I don't know if somebody's looking after me or coming after me. But, no, you say it's what, things I did for money. Well, I know as a teenager, as I was growing up, the baby boomers and all that good stuff, there were like 5 different passages you had to go through. One of them was to turn 13. You were a teenager. Second one, getting your driver's license. Third one, getting a job. The other 2 I'm not going to get into. Well, I am an Upper Valley boy, and my first job was with the Hanover, New Hampshire Cemetery Department. It was a very important job. I had a lot of people under me. But one other thing that was kind of weird was that the cemetery department had close ties to the Department of Public Works, and also the law enforcement agency. The foreman of the cemetery department was an Irishman. The chief of police was an Irishman, and they were at each other all the time. And throw in the Department of Public Works, and it gets even weirder. Well, one thing that was part of my job, I came into the work shack early in the morning, and there was a box sitting in front of the garage door. Percy Connor, who was the chairperson of that outfit, he would say, said, "Would you take care of that, please?" I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "I don't know." I went up to look. The highway department had left us a skunk. I had never been that close to a skunk before, and I'll tell you, it's nothing like just hearing one out in the woods somewhere, smelling one out in the woods. It makes your eyes water, and it makes you nauseous. So that was one of the sweet little things we had to do. Another thing that was part of that job was trimming the hedge. You go, yeah? Well, this hedge was, if you counted up all the feet, it was about 1.5 miles. That's not an exaggeration, and part of it was so high, you had to cut it with a ladder, use a ladder to get to it. One thing I found out the hard way was that these hedges, even though they're nice and tight and neat and everything, are a place where yellow jackets live. And so that was loads of fun, too. One of the other things that the highway department did was when we had to dig a grave in either Etna or Hanover Center, it was so rocky you couldn't do it just by hand. You had to use some equipment. And they'd bring down a payloader with a bucket shovel thing on it. The guy running the machinery was a fellow named Gene Chabot. He could take that massive shovel and put dirt in it and fill a cup with it. I mean, this guy was amazing. He had more skill than I could ever imagine to run one of these things. Well, here's dumb Peter digging in the grave, and I brought my shovel up, and Gene kind of went, he dropped the bucket on my shovel and almost catapulted me over the grave. He thought it was very amusing. But let's see, what was it? Oh, no. Well, at any rate, it was a very good job for the summer, and as I say, I was very proud of having people work under me, as they all did, and as you used to say, to whom it may concern. We're very fortunate to be here. And I just forgot my punchline. No, never mind. I'm getting to that tender age. Sorry to disappoint you. But if you want a good job, go to the cemetery department. Oh, I know what it was. I was mowing. You mow for 8 hours a day. One day, just mowing. Two little incidents. One was Chief Dennis Cooney, who was the Irish policeman, came behind me. Little did I know I was mowing with this machine. We didn't have ear protection then, which is probably why these are in there now. Came up behind me and turned the siren on. I almost left my shoes in the grass. I was like, oh my God. And then one other incident was I was mowing, and you get into this strange set of mindset where you just mow and you do it. It's like you're a robot, like those little disky things they sell now, I guess. I was going along there, and a grave collapsed underneath me. As I went down thinking, oh God, they've come for me at last! And that was probably one of the most unnerving experiences, but boy, the things we do for money.
Draw another one from here, but I won't. But please, if your story isn't here, submit it for another Mudroom sometime, please. And one reason we like to invite someone from the audience up here is just to show that anyone can tell a story. You don't even need to prepare for it. And I also encourage everyone to just get together and tell each other stories. It's what connects us as people. Our next storyteller of the evening is Eva Zimmet. She is a dancer and a children's book writer. She had a book that just came out, Lucy Dancer. And the story she's going to tell is another version of the book, I understand. Please, welcome Eva.
Thanks. It's not really another version of the book. It's sort of like the sequel, what I'm going to tell, and that's what comes first. But I start out around that time, 1972. America was still caught in an undeclared war, and I was caught in one too, within my family. My father was an optical engineer. He was a Holocaust survivor. He was an inventor and a spy. My sister was a Monkees fan. Anybody? She was not always very kind to me, and she was an early adopter of weed. My mother was an artist, a Depression baby. She was multi-talented, multilingual, resilient, resourceful, creative, strong, and a great lover of vodka. But her drinking was a secret, even after everyone knew. I know, everybody knows, but nobody says. And that's how undeclared wars work. Secrets and lies are currency. So by 12, I was practically a traitor. I knew how to knock back a shot with an Italian toast. I drizzled Kahlua on my ice cream. Mom taught me. I knew that guzzling a quart of vodka could kill you. Mom taught me. Do it yourself. And when I did learn how to guzzle, I thought I had arrived. And I thought I had earned my mother's love. Her love was real. It's just, so were her lies. So after every binge, after every car wreck, after every fire, she would hug me and she would sing Better Than I Will, Billie Holiday. That's the only thing I've got plenty of, baby. And she would promise us all that she would stop drinking. Meanwhile, my father taught me how to play chess and to whitewater kayak and to not ask questions. I had questions. I was like, what is this kayaking thing that you do in the North Pole? And the maps. And what is the translating in 5 languages? What's that about? And why are you leaving your family? And what did you invent that little camera that went on top of a pen in a shirt pocket? What was that for? But I stopped asking questions after a while because all I got was lies. So, 1972, my skill set, recklessness, and a little paranoia. But luckily, my mother also taught me how to put out fires. For real, literally, it was a thing with her. One time, a guy she was entertaining caught on fire. And she put him out. She put the fire out. And she tackled him and rolled him in the dirt. And everyone was okay, sort of. And she taught me culture. She taught me how to play the piano. And she took me to ballet lessons. I didn't want to go to ballet lessons. I didn't like ballet. I thought it was so artificial. And I didn't like pink. But I went. She took me. And I wore black, New York. And I scowled a lot. And despite all of that, I was hooked. Because in ballet, you can't lie. The legs do not lie. And I loved that. It was new for me. It was a challenge, this not lying thing. But it was what I was looking for. So, 1972, I was in my first performance, and we wore blue leotards and blue chiffon capes, and I felt like I flew. And that's when I figured out that if I wanted to stay, I would have to do it professionally. And I did want to stay because that was my safe space. And being professional was going to be my ticket. So I worked hard, got better, took a lot of classes, practice. And I hit a few pitfalls of my own along the way. I skipped a few meals. I measured weight gains and losses on my ribs, and I wore plastic pants to sleep, to be thinner in the morning. We all did that. We all did that. And I bandaged my feet, and so there was some pain, but the stakes were really high for me, and the pain was nothing. I didn't want to go back. So a couple of years go by, working hard, getting better. I went to auditions. I got work, more auditions, more work, and I'll never forget the glory of the $350 a week and the union card. It was civil extortion, and I agreed to it. So I also agreed to the unemployment lines between seasons, and I agreed to the other things that a young, fit body can do to get by. I was a club girl at Ipanema Club on 52nd Street, New York City. It's not there anymore, Brazilian place. And I wore a purple spandex motorcycle outfit, and I served drinks. And I wasn't tall enough to be a fashion model, but wow, take your clothes off and nobody cares how tall you are. So I was a figure model for art school, a life model, and I did photo shoots too. But to those, I would sometimes bring a friend, kind of as a bodyguard, and I'm really glad I did. I made a lot of good friends, and I lost a lot of good friends too. It was the HIV crisis time, and I mourn more people than I like to count. But I do count them, I do. Because dancing was a safe space for all of us. In the outside world, when I finally left ballet, was a huge shock. And there were no re-entry program for us for things like, what is normal eating? And what do you mean by male and female? And what is all this sitting in chairs, this sitting? I don't understand. It was so hard for me. But there were illusions when I was dancing. There was, of course, the imaginary fourth wall, and there was drama in the green room. I had my costume slashed. My friend had glass put in her point shoes. Another friend had a makeup kit trashed. So some competition. And when I finally did go to college and the admissions wardens were trying to intimidate me at the competition, I was like, whatever, I'm good. But my skill set by that time, much improved, and my bullshit detector honed. And the practice, it doesn't allow for deception, that saved my life. And it still gives me a reason to stay.
Thank you, Eva. Oh,
We're going to give away one more. We were supposed to do this.
I
All
knew
right.
it.
Okay. This is two
Wait,
tickets.
let's make sure we have the right basket.
We do,
Yes.
we do. Okay, this is 2 tickets to the Mudroom. You pick.
Okay.
All right. There you
And
go.
the name I got.
Here we go. I can't read it.
I see Clark.
Again.
But
no,
no.
different Clark.
What I read
How
is
many
Clark.
times did you
Clark.
answer? It is Herb Clark. Hank. Hank Clark. You guys now have...
Wait. Okay.
All right.
Wait, you're together? Can we pick another one? This is not
How many
supposed to
times
happen.
did you enter? Okay. You
Yeah.
gotta tell us.
Okay, let's try
All right.
again. Kirsha.
Fry Matt. Yay! 2 tickets to the next mudroom. Here, let me have that now. All right, there you go.
Oh, Sally. Does she have to? I guess just get in touch with Sally afterwards.
I think Cheryl's going to notify.
Or Cheryl, if your name and address is on there, they'll get in touch with you. And I also wanted to mention one more time, remind you that if you're interested in Eva's book, she said she has some copies with her. Okay, and I'll give this one back to you. I'll keep it for a while. Our next storyteller, and our last for today, Kevin, deals with stories all the time. In his job as a therapist, he listens to other people's stories. But then also in Burlington, he is the co-founder of Say It Forward Productions, which is a organization that links nonprofits with storytelling for mission-driven fundraising. Kevin, are you here? Please come on up. And there's one other thing I need to tell you about Kevin.
What would that be, Julia?
It's Kevin's birthday. So I think we should sing happy birthday, right?
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kevin. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
And are you ready to tell a story?
I am ready to tell a story. How can you not be ready after people sing to you? That's a pretty receptive audience. Well, it would go something like this. Hi, Kev. This is Heather. Look, a free trip to the Caribbean, 4 nights, air, hotel, food. You only have to buy your own booze. Are you in? And I'd be like, yep. And she's like, all right, meet me Wednesday at JFK by noon. Heather was my best friend in college, and she also was a travel agent. And I was in training to become her travel husband. Because travel agents, I guess, get a lot of deals on trips and sometimes free trips, but they can't just take anybody, but they can take a spouse. And I don't have a marriage license yet, but I assume all of you who have them, I've never seen any of you carded, like on vacation or at a restaurant or by the airport. So we sort of got away with it and continue to this point. So on that following Wednesday, a very frigid February morning, I arrived at JFK. I met Heather and Heather's colleague Dale and Dale's fake husband Fred. And Fred happened to be Heather's brother. So we were sort of an odd couple of couples. But the tickets that we had were standby tickets, and we could go anywhere in the world that the airline flew with these tickets. But we decided it was only 4 days. Let's just go to the Caribbean because it's February. But we had to find standby. So we went gate after gate after gate after JFK. No seats, no seats, no seats, no seats. Well, the only flight that had seats was to the Dominican Republic. So we were like, all right, that's where we're going. This was 1983, and the Dominican Republic was not sort of the destination vacation place that it is now. It was fairly rural, not very developed, practically third world, which worked out well for us because we were recent college graduates and we were pulling in $3.35 an hour. Full time. Yeah, that works out, in case you want to know, after taxes, $108 a week take home. So we didn't really have the kind of income that would sort of work for going to Anguilla or Barbados. So the DR was fine for us. And I'll have to say, the 4 days were awesome. Sun, sand, surf, pina coladas at the tiki bar in the afternoon, dancing salsa and merengue in the barrio till 4 a.m. You know, I was a pretty lucky 23-year-old married man at that point. But when it came time to leave, we also had standby tickets, so we went to the airport, and we found out that the airport was on strike. Yes. And see, I have to remind you of this time period, because there are some young people here. There was a period of time where no news traveled to anybody anywhere. Like, we had no idea the airport had been closed for days. You just didn't know anything. I mean, the airlines used clipboards, like not computers, but just like a clipboard was how you got on a plane. So we didn't quite know what to do, except we were told that one plane a day would come in and that plane would leave, but the only people that could leave were emergencies, or, if you could pay a lot of money, which we did not have a lot of money. So we did not get out on Sunday, and we did not get out on Monday. And if I could describe to you the airport, so small, kind of rustic airport, hundreds of people, all trying to get on this one plane with all their excuses, same ones we had. So the only thing it reminded me of, if anyone recalls, the annual bridal gown sale in Filene's Bargain Basement, where they just open the doors, and everyone flies in. So it was kind of like that, but getting on a plane. So I was very discouraged, but all of us were a little freaking out because we all have jobs. And for those of you who don't remember, like back then, you didn't call people. Like to call from an island would be way too much money. So we just weren't going to work, and our employers had no idea where we were. The next morning, Tuesday morning, we arrive early at the airport. No luck again getting on the plane. So we're standing at the counter watching the plane back away from the terminal and head toward the runway, and it stopped and turned around and came back. And a man and a woman and a young girl got off the plane. We later learned that the mother had had a premonition that the plane was going to crash, and so she refused to be on the plane. So the airline representative looks at the four of us and said, I've got 3 seats. You want them? So we all look at Heather, and Heather says, Dale, Fred, you guys get on the plane. Kevin will stay here with me. So I watch Dale and Fred sprint across the tarmac and get on the plane to New York, and I turn around, and Heather is sobbing, slumped on a bench. So I was kind of pissed, but I went over, and she said, I know you hate me. I just know you hate me. But I just couldn't take my brother yelling at me anymore. I'm just so sick of him. And I don't want to be here by myself. So I thought you would stay and you would still like me anyway. And I thought, well, I don't really like you right now. But I guess this is what a travel husband has to do. Is don't worry, dear, it will be fine. Well, after the sobbing stopped, Heather said, do you have any money? And I said, I have $8. And I said, what do you have? And she said, I have change, coins. So I'm like, what are we going to do? Food, where are we going to stay? Well, do you remember that couple that we ran into on the beach from Utah, John and Jane, which we later renamed Juan and Hain? I said, yeah. And she said, well, they said they had rented a place on the beach. And maybe if we just walk along the beach, we could find them. So it's okay, so we hitchhiked to the beach, and we went from one end of the beach to the other for hours, fully dressed, dragging our Samsonite luggage in the sand, because it was nice, hard powder blue. And by nightfall, we were actually having beers and dinner with Juan and Hain. But somewhere around, I think 10 or 11, Juan says, Jane, we should take them snorkeling. And Jane said, oh my God, that sounds like a great idea. Do you guys really want to go snorkeling? So I look at Heather, and she's like, and I'm like, I'm not, I think snorkeling's I like to snorkel, but there's not a lot to see at night. Oh no, you'll be able to see everything. And Heather said, okay. And I thought, oh my God, I am so pissed off that I'm broke. Because in my mind I was thinking I know snorkeling is not snorkeling, I'm that smart. But I'm thinking, is this going to be one of those Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice, orgy things? 2 odd couples doing odd things, together. So Juan goes into the bedroom and comes back out with a snorkel mask with the mouthpiece, and they had turned it into a bong, a full face bong, eyes, nose, and mouth. And at the top of the mouthpiece, they had, you know, the little foil up there, and it wasn't pot, it was hash. And so I said, I'm not like a real big fan of pot. I don't really like it. And Heather said, we'd love to. We would love to. So I went snorkeling a couple of times, and I was high enough that I probably could have flown back to New York myself. I sort of like to think of it, it was my own personal Mile High Club that I was in. But when it came time to go to bed, I said to Heather, I said, I will not wake up in the morning this stoned. Like, I can barely see. And she said, well, then we'll just have to stay up all night. So we took turns. And when the sun rose and the roosters were making their sounds, we dragged our Samsonites back down to the beach and hitchhiked back to the airport. Still a little high and a little cranky. And when we got up to the counter, Heather grabbed the airline representative's tie, same guy from the day before, and she said, I'm going to punch you in the face every day we don't leave. And we got on the plane. Yeah. And we flew first class. My first and my last time flying first class. And so since then, I have been the travel husband for dozens and dozens and dozens of trips. And I have learned a lot about what you have to do if you want a free trip. Because there are a lot of things you have to do for a free trip. And I'm thinking of my next story possibly being just a recent one last fall, taking a Caribbean cruise during hurricane season with my travel wife and our 58-year-old daughter. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, and happy birthday again. And that concludes our evening. Keep in mind, if you've ever broken any rules, tell us a story about that. Contact us and let us know you want to tell a story. And we hope to see you in September. September 13th is the next Mudroom. Thank you.